dad, baby.
Yeah, I'm a dad. You're a dad. We're all dads.
true.
Well, a lot of us are dads. We're better off, Dad, trying to do the right thing when things are hard. And today it's what they call in the business a filler episode. We got multiple things. We're going to just cover kind of an update on Paul's move. As you can tell in the background, he's moving. And I guess the next one we record will be at the new place. We're also going to talk about future plans. We're going to do a softcore history on Vietnam in a few weeks once everything settles. And I have an update on the trial of the century. Longtime listeners may may know about, and and some ideas for directions the show can take. So stick around, get an update. We promise it won't hurt
much. But before we get into that, if you like what you see or hear and you want to see more, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video. You know somebody who needs a dad.
When you live in this big city, it doesn't matter what time of day or night it is. Some people are leaving home to go to stuff. Some people are on their way home from stuff, and some people are just in the middle of doing stuff. Me, I'm always in the middle of doing stuff. Like, for example, my grandmother's homemade tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwich. You get you some nice white bread. Wonder is the best. But if you got to get the generic stuff, that's okay too. Just don't mess around with that 12 seed crunchy bread. Bread's not meant to be crunchy. and here's my shortcut. Toast it. Toast that bread. And then spread it butter on it. Put the cheese on. Stick it in the microwave. Melt the cheese. Grilled cheese. Forget the skillet or the griddle and all that stuff. That's ridiculous. You cook bread in the toaster, not on the stove. It's a hard-boiled detective. Actually, I think we're onto something. It's a hard-boiled detective.
I think we are.
Cookbook.
That's right. We got it, but we have to have a recipe in there for hard-boiled eggs to wrap it up.
When she walked into a room, you could just sense. When she'd walk into a room, they could sense her walking in from 3 states over. She had legs that went all the way up to her neck, and her heels tapped into the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator door, and she pulled out the hot dogs and ketchup because she was going to make hot dog surprise.
The director Jean-Luc Godard said that all you need to make a movie is a girl and a gun. It's like all you need to make a cookbook is a girl and a spatula.
Chekhov wasn't here, but his gun sure was. And now we have to use the gun in the recipe.
Caught me off guard.
How are we going to use this gun in this recipe? Well, I don't know, but we have to. We mentioned it. We got to use it in the recipe. We're going to use it to stir the custard before we pour it into the pie pan.
I've never hit a low point in the book. A man bursts through the door with a colander.
Is it calendar or colander? What did you say?
I say colander. I don't even.
Colander? That's a third way to say it.
Yeah.
Whenever I say calendar, people correct me to colander. And now I've heard colander. I'm going to start saying colander and see who notices.
Well,
do you also say cauliflower?
No, I say cauliflower.
Oh.
Calla.
Calla?
Not holla at you?
I say cauli. I say cauliflower, and people make fun of me for saying cauliflower.
Cali's the god of destruction. I don't want her in my house.
He had a weird speech impediment, but nobody made fun of him because they knew what happens to people that make fun of Steve. No, not that one, the other one. He said cauliflower, and everybody held their breath because Damon didn't know. You don't make fun of Steve's speech impediment. If you mess with Steve's speech impediment, he'll oversalt your cauliflower.
Autocorrect is going to have fun with your script, with your manuscript, because it doesn't know if you're talking about a calendar or a calendar.
Yeah, but our ad revenue is going to be huge because there's also going to be a website, and if you look up, I read somewhere that the reason they put all that extra, so when you look up a recipe, you got to read 3 pages of BS before you get to the actual recipe. And I always assumed it was just for search engine optimization and ad revenue, which I don't know, I'm sure that's a big part of it. But somebody said it was because if you just have a website with recipes, there's no attachment to, it's just like now, how's that any different than, say, Wikipedia or something? It's just a repository for recipes. You got to put the personality into it to make it worthwhile.
They say that, but I mean, nobody. Okay, you're on Google because you want to know how to make, grilled cheese and
Yeah.
You go to you got to go to recipe.com or whatever the top one is, which will basically just be like, a step recipe. Nobody goes, I need a good story though.
Yeah.
And they back up and they go down to like, mom's favorites or something, and nobody does that.
We do have some stuff planned. It's just we don't have anything ready today. I think if you enjoyed the series on Japan, we got another one coming up that's going to follow a similar template about Vietnam. So you think about World War II, and like, what if you ask your dad about World War II and then he really gets into it and tells you all this stuff you never learned in school? We're going to do the same thing for Vietnam. Only not if you ask your dad about Vietnam, because if you ask your dad about Vietnam, he'll be like, I was there in the bush and Charlie came up. I don't know. Can you say Charlie? I don't know if that's. I got to look up what would now be considered racist.
I'm pretty sure Charlie's racist.
Okay, we won't
consider. I'm almost positive it's not one of those words that didn't start out like it didn't originally start out racist. It just became racist. I'm pretty sure it started out racist.
Right. In every war, the military has to come up with some racist thing to call the other side, right?
Yeah, to dehumanize them, yes.
Right, exactly.
And dehumanization is the definition of racism.
Right. So anyway, we got a Vietnam coming up, and I don't know. This could be good. Softcore history. We'll continue down that path as long as we continue to have ideas. But
it might be fun to tie the Vietnam episode into the fact that if there ever was a draft again, Gen Z's not going.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I also read, I'm always reading and listening to stuff. But anyway, somebody said,
it means you're alive.
Anytime anybody, I used to think people were smart and they would be like, this will never happen again, and here's why. And I'd go, that makes sense to me. But now when I hear somebody say that, I'm like, nobody knows anything. Like, there's plenty of stuff that we said would never happen that has happened.
Yeah.
Mostly in the last few years. But it sounded reasonable to me. They said there won't be another draft. And maybe we'll get into this in the Vietnam episode, because they said, they ended the draft because of Vietnam, and it's not what you think. It's not because like, oh, it's just wrong, you shouldn't force people to go, and you end up getting the most disadvantaged, least privileged people end up going.
Oh, God, yes.
And they said that's a good reason to end a draft, but that's not the reason they ended the draft. The reason they ended the draft is what you end up with is a bunch of people who don't really want to be there becoming radicalized. You teach them military tactics. They end up hating their country for putting them through this. And now these people with military tactics and training come back to the U.S. with their military tactics and training and cause all kinds of trouble, potentially. And Nixon was actually worried about draftees coming back from Vietnam and starting a revolution. So
it's like they didn't learn anything from Spartacus.
I am Spartacus. So what you really want is volunteers, like the gung-ho patriot. I'm. Of course, you can't tell it by the way they do their recruiting.
Facebook like this.
Yeah, you can't tell it by the way they do their recruiting, because they're out there recruiting from people who, like, they want to convince them this is their best choice. Like, what are you going to do? You're not going to college. What are you where are you going to get a marketable skill? And so I don't know. Who knows what?
It's like my lady Amy, her daughter, when she was in college, they went. You get your clique group of friends in college, and one of them is like rich. We'll just flat out say the dude's rich.
I remember Rich.
His name, I won't say what his name is, but it's a rich guy sounding name. Anyway, like he was blown away.
Chaz.
They're like, what do you mean the military comes to your school? What? Yeah, they come where the poor kids are.
Meanwhile, life is happening. You're in the middle of a move, as
Yeah.
evidenced by the empty bookshelf behind you. The Doomed Wizard's still there. Hi, Doomed Wizard.
He follows me everywhere.
Nice.
He gets around. Yeah.
He's like the Forrest Gump of mascots.
Except I don't hate the Doomed Wizard, so
Oh, you hate Forrest Gump?
I can't stand that
Yeah.
movie, dude. I mean,
And
it's
in
fun to quote and it's fun to play around with, but and I
And-
apologize. Speaking of moving, though, I
Yeah.
apologize for this. Well, now it won't do it. If you hear any squeaking, it's my chair. I'm not in my usual chair today.
So you apologize for
There it
that. I apologize for
Yeah.
this.
Hey, never apologize for that. Never.
Okay.
All
I
right.
was in the other reason we're not ready is I was getting ready for a trial
Mhm.
that was supposed to be next week. And the longtime listeners will remember it
Long time listeners.
early 2017
Mhm.
during the Don't Panic radio show days. So that's over now. And the case has been dismissed. Well, it's on the verge of being dismissed. We've signed all the paperwork.
Mhm.
It still hasn't come through. By the time this is published, it probably will have been dismissed. And like you see on TV and on the news, it's true. I can't say any more than that. Because of the terms of the dismissal,
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to say any more than just it has been, we fought for a long time and now we don't have to go to trial. So very happy about
It's a
that.
great story. That's
Yeah.
a great story. That reminds me. I heard somebody one time talking about how, like, 'cause, stuff you can't talk about.
Mhm.
If there's like a gap in your employment
Mhm.
and you're like in an interview
Yeah.
and the interviewer asks you, can you explain this gap in your employment? You just
Mhm.
say, no, I signed an NDA.
That's good.
I
I could tell you, but I'd have to get you
Yeah.
to sign an NDA.
Yeah, because they can't even follow up on it or nothing. They can't ask any questions about it. They can't get any phone numbers from you.
I signed an NDA.
It's all made up, man. Everything's made up and everything sucks. So just make it your own.
So that reminds me of, this is Better Off Dad, and I think we're pretty good dads. And
I like to think so.
we've had this idea, but I think it works better as an idea than it does as something that would actually happen in real life. And that is getting the table at a festival with the sign that says "Old farts giving advice." It's
Yeah.
probably bad advice, so you shouldn't follow it.
That's why it's free.
That's why it's free. I do like that idea, but I ran across
Mhm.
a Facebook group called Hey Dad, and it's basically that. You can put like basically somebody started the Facebook group hoping dads would join it. They don't have a good relationship with their dad, or their dad's not, doesn't know how to do shit like me.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, you say that.
I know how to do shit. But you can go on there and be like, "Hey, Dad, the door's not closing right. How do I fix it?" Or, "Hey, Dad, my car's making a funny noise." Or, "Hey, Dad, I'm gonna buy a new car. What advice can you?" And I'm like, I like it because I get stuff. Sometimes
Yeah.
I actually weigh in. Like somebody will have something that I'm like, I actually do have advice on that, and I'll put stuff on there.
I think it's a good
Um,
idea.
I think it would be a good
It's like
idea
a
for us.
community.
If
Yeah,
anybody
it's like a
cares
community Ask Jeeves.
if anybody cares to interact with us, I would love it if people asked us questions like, fatherly advice type things. Like, how should I handle this? And we'll answer them live on air.
Yeah. With the disclaimer, we don't know what we're talking about.
It's free, so you get what you pay for.
If we don't know what we're talking about, we're still not going to talk about it. Not talk about it.
We're not gonna not talk about it. You get what you pay
How many
for.
knots is that?
A lot. But what do we know? We're just better off, Dad, trying to do the right thing when things are hard, and it shouldn't be this hard. That's probably enough for a jibber jabber episode. Paul and I are going to keep talking. If we think of anything funny after we stop recording, we'll come back at you and let you know what it is. But for now, this is what they call a filler episode. If it's any good, I mean, if you're listening to it, Paul decided it was good enough to publish. So
It's my fault.
yeah.